War of the Rohirrim was worse than I thought. And if you just turn your mind off and pretend it's not Tolkien, it's still a not good movie. There's a lot of elements to it where I could do hours and hours of content just on why this is such a failure. It's like a case study. But what got me most when I watched this movie and am giving this review right now is the subversive death cult messages that Hollywood is pushing through this. They definitely pushed a extreme woke LGBTQ agenda with it as well through the character of Hera here. And they lied about it, too. The lady who was in charge of it just gave that interview saying, oh, this isn't woke. Go see it. Like she was trying to do damage control right before the movie came out. We did a video on it yesterday. It's way worse than we thought. And I'm going to go into the detail as to why these subversive storytelling elements are there, what Hollywood is intending to do, how evil it is, and how to write good fantasy, because that's what I do. I'm a fantasy author myself, and this is my honest review of Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. So please smash that like and subscribe button. Thank you guys for being here. And do check out my books if you're interested in my take on things. I know this is how you do a female lead, right? And there are wonderful male characters in this who do wonderful things and actually have their own books in the series too. Grab this. It is The Adventures of Baron von Monocle. It's about an airship crew that's going out and fighting monsters. It's pretty simple. And my ending to this series that will be coming up very, very shortly is going to be the opposite of what Hollywood does with things like the sacrament of marriage. I don't want to spoil it too much for people out there, but you'll enjoy this. If you like good world building, good fantasy, good characters, this is for you. It's in the description below. It is good for all ages if you want to get it as a Christmas gift for somebody. I've had people say their kids as young as 10 have enjoyed this. I've had people in their 70s say they've enjoyed it. That's how I write my books. And so this is really a lot of fun, and please grab this. Support our channel. It's in the description below. Thank you so much for reading. Really appreciate you guys for being there. All right, so The War of the Rohirrim is worse than I thought. It is something that's pushing evil LGBTQ lifestyles, shunning traditional marriage, and the entire theme of the movie is the sacrament of marriage is evil. And should be shunned by women, and women should turn to lesbianism and acting like men rather than be in their roles. And this is really bizarre. I mean, this is very much the opposite of what Tolkien would have had, as Tolkien was a traditional Catholic. And of course, Lord of the Rings has a lot of Catholic mythology to it, which actually is why it rings true and why it stands the test of time. This is for modern audiences, by modern audiences, and it's a disaster. Just on its surface, before we get into all the stuff, as a film, even taking all of that out of it, it was too long. It was about 2.5 hours long. It should have been like an hour and a half, an hour 45. They could have cut out so much. Some of the action scenes were pretty good. Some of the visuals were pretty good. The director did a decent job with what he had in this, but it was really, really cringy on just like the basic film level as well. Before we even go into this type of stuff, the main story of what the War of the Rohirrim is supposed to be about is it's about Helm Hammerhand. And so it's the history of Helm and how Rohan was flung into war after he killed a landowner called Freka with one punch because Freka was trying to force Hammerhand's daughter, who's pictured here, to marry his son Wolf and try to keep the realm together or whatever. And so Hammerhand didn't want that. And so Wolf decided to fight him. Hammerhand was known for being a one-punch man. He was known for combating with just his bare hands, which is really not illustrated in this either. Like when they did this, it was shocking. Like he was shocked that he knocked the guy out and killed him with one punch, and it's like, well, that's why he's called Hammerhand. But okay, and so that happened. The shock happened. And then he banished Wolf after Wolf was going to attack him. Alrighty, the writing was pretty bad because Hammerhand goes, "There's been enough bloodshed today." Well, he killed the guy with one punch, and yeah, bloodshed. I mean, he killed him, right? There's been enough death today would have been what he should have said. There was no blood actually in the scene, so it's like there wasn't any bloodshed technically. So it was like, okay, doesn't match the visuals. Easy thing to fix, and again, just goes to show how bad the writing is throughout this. The film felt very, very disjointed. Like there were like too many cooks in there that wanted to go too many different directions at different times, and that definitely made things suffer. So as this goes along, Wolf disappears. He goes and raises an army, which is not shown in there. It's like told to you by narration, and so that's part of a problem. And when Wolf comes back 4 years later, he then besieges Rohan. They have a big war. This is Tolkien's story, right? And Hammerhand loses the first battle. He loses his eldest son. They retreat into their keep, which is in Helm's Deep. Winter comes. It gets really bad. The other son goes out and then forages for food, gets lost in a blizzard. And then Wolf, meanwhile, splits his armies because he doesn't know what to do. And then Freyalaf, comes back, and who's the nephew of this guy, with an army from elsewhere, and actually defeats Wolf where Wolf is elsewhere, which then liberates Rohan and gets them out of the keep. In the meantime, Hammerhand is going mad because of his son's death. And because of this, goes outside the walls and starts beating the forces outside of the keep to death with his bare hands. And people think he's a wraith and think he's a supernatural being because he does so. And after he really wreaks havoc on that split army there, which is not actually a threat to the keep too much, he's found frozen outside the gates. And that's the story. Now, pretty cool story. And if you just did that, it would have worked really well. But forcing it from Hera's perspective the entire time took you out of the conflict quite a bit. And so you have her and thinking about this and seeing what's going on, and she's not actually doing anything in a lot of these fights. And so since it's not from the perspective of Hammerhand or his sons who are doing the battles, those battles feel kind of just detached and, like I said, scattered and really not well done on that front. But the Hera situation gets crazier. So because they made this about her and not about what the actual story was about, because the only mention of her is she was to be wed to this guy, and then Hammerhand said no. And she was not named. That was it. That's the only thing you know of her existence. And so the rest of it, she had no part in any of the story, and anything that was done was a change and twist of the story. So immediately it goes into strong female lead territory and just like bad feminist writing where it doesn't make any sense, and it never makes any sense. Because immediately, this is the first court scene, which I've got on screen right now with this image. This is where he's listening about the marriage proposal. So she actually speaks out in court and goes, "I don't want to marry you," and acts like a spoiled brat. And this is something that in a medieval setting would not be tolerated. She would not be allowed to do that, and she shouldn't be this old too. Because if this was a arranged marriage sort of situation, she should be much younger, like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in a fantasy setting, to where she would not be in this spot anyway. Because what is an adult woman doing, not married and not being fruitful and multiplying at this point anyway? That doesn't make sense. But hey. Nothing has to make sense with feminist Hollywood. It's all about the strong female lead. Not only that, but she goes further in this and goes, doesn't just say she doesn't want to marry Wolf, but she goes, "I will marry no man." And like her father's okay with this? Like, this is insanity. Like, I mean, if somebody was acting like this again, she is acting out, acting crazy, and he should be chastising her on this front. Instead, he's just like fighting. And then, so clearly the institution of marriage is a bad thing. The hero doesn't like marriage. The hero wants to go do other things as a woman, right? And so it is definitely somebody's self-insert writing in Hollywood of some feminist lady with cats who just wants to say that, it's actually a good thing that she didn't get married and have kids, even though she's 45 now and regretting it. That's what she's trying to do in here. And that's why it rings so false right away. Now, the men are all obsessed with the marriage, right? And so the men are bad, and they're trying to force marriage, and their evil. Masculinity is toxic. That is the message that they're sending through this. And Wolf becomes obsessed with her, obsessed with Mary. "Why won't you marry me? Am I so terrible?" And eventually kidnaps her to illustrate the point. And this is where it goes off the rails again. When she gets kidnapped, a woman goes and rescues her single-handedly, fights off Wolf, fights off his guards, and gets her on a horse, and they go out, and she's a shield maiden, right? And she's very clearly like she's got a short haircut, very kind of butch-like kind of androgynous. This is her on the left here. And so I guess she doesn't have a short haircut. It's just the way it's like done right here. It's just like it's always tied back, so you can't tell. But you can tell she's the frumpy lesbian type, right? And so she's clearly meant to be a lesbian and show that's the way, that's the path forward away from these men. So as they get into the fighting and as it escalates, the men just act stupid. Like the helm banishes Freyalaf because Freyalaf didn't like save Hera when she got kidnapped, I guess. Again, not part of Tolkien's lore. Like Freyalaf just like was in his own sort of lands and was definitely just a part of things and was the hero of the story once Hammerhand kind of died. And so it's kind of like, what? But they did that. All the men just act stupidly. And Hera just keeps trying to call for peace and says this is all terrible. It's like, why are you fighting? She's wiser. She's smarter than everybody else, of course. It's, cringy on that level. But the evil part really is about the institution of marriage because she shuns it. That's what the hero does. And that is the whole subversion here. And it gets even crazier because it ends up being the entire motif, the entire theme, the entire plot of the entire deal. They go through these battles. Wolf eventually sieges the keep, and Hera decides to have everybody go back out the back. And then there's this wedding dress in the keep that like some lady who was supposed to get married died and then didn't have it. And so Hera, like, to go out and fight, like, puts on a wedding dress. One, nonsensical, again, because how are you going to fight in that, especially in like the blizzard cold? Number two, it's a clear illustration of what's going on. And so she goes out and Wolf goes, well, you expect me to marry you now? And of course she goes toe to toe fighting with him. Like, he's a warrior general and she is some 100-pound girl who like has been holed up in a keep, unable to eat for like several months, like very much, like probably withering and dying because of starvation in the keep because they said they had low supplies. And yet for some reason she can go toe to toe with him in fighting. It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. And she pushes him back. Like she is shown to be just as or more strong than him, like physically. And you can see even just in the way that they're drawn, not the case. But the wedding dress is the weird part. So she rolls out there in that, and then he asks her about marriage, says, "You expect me to marry you now?" And she again goes, "I will marry no man." And it's like, why are you saying this multiple times throughout the film that you like are never going to marry? You're going to refuse. Oh, this is weird. And then he asks who she's going to wed since she's wearing a wedding dress, and she goes, she says she's a bride of death, and it's like, bride of death. What the hell? This is the hero? Why? The line just like makes it's supposed to sound badass or something, right? And it's supposed to like maybe represent that she's going to sacrifice herself, but she doesn't. She just kills Wolf. She doesn't sacrifice herself at all. She's just better. And then like Wolf's like armies like stand down because like of her, and that's all. And it's like, what? Bride of Death, though, is very interesting because she refuses marriage, which means she's refusing to propagate the species. Marriage is a symbol of life and a symbol of goodness. And death means like she's drawing upon death, like, and the power of death in order to fight this guy and gain strength. Well, that's satanic. That's like she's literally asking Satan for help here, I guess, is the message. And that's where it gets really, really evil. And so if you start to actually think about it and what they're actually trying to say here, it is, in fact, evil. And the hero is actually evil, and this is what Hollywood's purporting. So more than that, as she goes into battle right before this, she actually kisses the shield maiden on the cheek, and of course, implied lesbianism there is very weird, as she's marrying no man, right? She doesn't say I'll marry no one. I'll marry no man, right? Very intentional, because this is modern audiences, right? It's not that they're using fantasy language, because they're doing nothing else fantasy, right? That makes sense for medieval times. So obviously the language is very important to them, that they want to push the modern language on this stuff. So very much implied there, and it's the only kiss in the whole movie, as she kisses this other girl on the cheek. And then after this is all over, she decides to ride off into the sunset and go, and the shield maiden and her ride off together. The two women go off by themselves, adventuring, acting like men alone. Again, lesbianism. So it is a pure LGBTQ storyline, and it is a pure anti-male storyline, and it is a pure evil storyline where she's literally worshiping death in order to get to like accomplish her goals. Now, of course, lots of telling and not showing her heroism, because even though she does nothing through the whole movie, like Hammerhand before he dies goes, I should have listened to you. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. Oh, you are cunning and you are strong. You should be the one to lead our people. Lots of like the women should be the ones to lead our people. It's so obnoxious. And then even Freyolaf at the end, when he gets coronated king because he's the one who actually led the armies and saved everybody, goes up to her and goes, "It should have been you to be the leader." And she has to turn it down. So again, just like it is about as woke as it possibly gets, and those story points just don't make any sense. Now, there's cringy parts where they tie it into the main Lord of the Rings storyline also, which were not implied at all in this in the original story. There's orcs that show up rather in the snow, trying to get rings off of people's bodies to imply that the One Ring it's tied to the One Ring somehow. Not everything has to be tied to the One Ring. This is so stupid. And then of course Gandalf is asking about that, and then Hera has to go see him at the end because Gandalf, and she's going to go find Gandalf and tell him about the ring. So literally, her refusing to marry and refusing conventional feminist female archetypes and acting like a man literally saves everything and helps Frodo save the world eventually. I mean, it's like, really, you had to do that. And it doesn't even make sense because Gandalf didn't even know about the rings or anything like that until The Hobbit, when Smeagol had the ring, and that's when they found it, and that was the whole deal. So again, they tried too hard to do too many different things on top of this. But at the end of the day, like the real story here is just evil feminism and evil LGBTQ agenda. This was a massive attempt to subvert culture, and it really shows. Terrible stuff. All right, leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Whew, I could go off for hours, like I said. Hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you for being here, my friends, and do check out my fantasy works. This is my first Demon Country. I write a female character well who does not do this kind of thing at all. It's very much quite the opposite. And I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's a good book for everybody, and the series really progresses very nicely as it goes along, so check it out. It's in the description below. Thank you so much for being there, and we'll be back soon.